Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me. I am still Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. It is still in the description below. It is still your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Please reach out to me directly. I am still Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today we are discussing a watch launched in 2022, 60 pieces in grade 5 titanium. This is the Louis Moinet Memoris Spirit. Now in the past I've faulted Louis Moinet for being somewhat stuck in the aesthetic and size sensibilities of the late 2000s and early 2010s, but this watch really answers the call with a size better suited to the 2020s and prevailing tastes of today. So in grade 5 tie and sapphire, both very light. The watch is 40.7 millimeters in diameter, 18.1 millimeters thick, more on that in a moment, and a very reasonable 48.6 millimeters from lug to lug with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Now, back to that crystal and the thickness. You could see that there is an incredible vaulted crown of a crystal atop this case. And if you just measure the case back and the mid case, you've got a watch that's about 12.5 millimeters thick. The remainder of that 18.1 is all the crystal on the top. So while it might seem colossally thick, it doesn't wear quite that way because a lot of that thickness is in the crystal. Taking a look at the strap, you can see it's a matte finished medium rectangular scale alligator leather and large rectangular scale alligator leather. Slight differences in the scale sizes from side to side. What's key is that on the bottom, it is round scale alligator leather. This is what the best brands are doing today. Using gator on the bottom instead of calf means the strap costs a few $100s more, but it's a lot more durable and long-lasting. You can see right here, this is a Louis Moinet factory strap in brand new condition. The strap has a little bit of bolstering or stuffing as you approach the lugs because it's fully conformed to the curve of the case and the slope of the lugs for a very integrated look and a firm fit. You can see there's a monotone stitch and then the edges are broad, but they are folded. This is not a sheer cut flank. There's a sort of velvety nubuck-like texture to the alligator. And then we have the Louis Moinet buckle with the logo externally, the fleur-de-lis. And it is a double fold deployant that's been blackened internally. It is stainless steel. The watch is titanium. Now there's a little push button adjuster in here that you can use for fine-tuning the fit when it's on the wrist. You see I'm able to telescope it just like that. There's some built-in stop points that allow you to fine-tune it. If you find yourself in between holes on the strap, this can allow you to get the perfect fit. And you can also see the use of ceramic spring-loaded pin snaps to maintain the snappy tolerances of the clasp over time. What you can also see is that there is a trigger release system for the clasp, which means you have to press the triggers for it to pop open. It's not going to inadvertently fly open due to a sudden motion of the wrist. Taking a look at the case, it is a rather involved thing. You can see on the bottom, the strap's actually held on using pull tabs, so you simply compress those tabs inward and the strap pops right out. It has a sort of skeuomorphic external screw fixture that looks like it might be the retention mechanism for the strap, but it is spring bars and you can remove them without tools, so that makes things easier. The lug profiles feature black polish. They're faceted. You can see just their uppermost portion features satination. The rest of it is polished like a mirror. Now the key thing is grade 5 titanium, which this is, can be polished. Grade 2 generally can't. It's hypoallergenic and lighter than steel like grade 2, but grade 5 is also more scratch resistant than grade 2, but also more scratch resistant than steel. So this is a very durable watch. We have a sort of clou de Paris pattern outboard on the mushroom style single chronograph pusher. You see, this is just a crown. It's not a coaxial pusher. That has the Louis Moinet fleur-de-lis black lacquered on, and it is a mono pusher column wheel lateral clutch chrono with all of the chronograph action visible on the dial side. This was my favorite feature of the traditional oversized Memoris, and I'm happy to see it's migrated almost unmodified to the smaller case. The crown, as you can see, is a push-down crown. There's a little flanking profile around it, almost like a shear guard, but that's ornamental, not functional. Then we have an ultra-thin bezel that sits superimposed over the Louis Moinet name. Case flanks are polished. You can see there's a nice sharp break between lug profile and case, a beautifully made case. The crystal is so huge that in practical terms, it is the case. It's almost hard to imagine how you would knock any part of the bezel or the case flank against a hard surface. The crystal, which is the most scratch-resistant part of the watch, is going to body block to protect the rest of the timepiece. Another watch you're looking at right here from Louis Moinet has a water resistance of 50 meters. So it's actually a little bit more than you might suspect on a conventional dress watch, although I still don't recommend it for swimming. On the back, you can see this is number 25 of 60. You can see this is the Memoris Spirit. You can see the fleur-de-lis of the company on the case back. And then we may as well focus on the dial a bit because half the movement's on the dial side. So outboard you have a scale against which you can read chronograph seconds and fractions of seconds, and then that scale slopes down a little bit. It's dished like a rejo. A rejo is your chapter ring with a little bit of slope on the boundary of the dial. The rejo gives way to a center that includes some of the best finishing you'll find on the movement. Now on the reverse side, you can see this is a fairly box stock Concepto automatic. And that's easy to see because not only is Concepto's distinctive micrometric eccentric screw adjustment mechanism sitting there, but if you look below the balance, you can actually see the Concepto C. Taking a look at the rest of it, it is an automatic winder with ceramic rotor bearings for high efficiency, 4 Hz beat rate, it pivots on 30 joules. It does have a hacking or stop seconds function, and it has a power reserve of 48 hours. The column wheel and lateral clutch are on the dial side. This is where we really depart from the underlying architecture, and it is an excellent feeling column wheel. Really very crisp. You can see the lateral clutch engaging and disengaging right there. The registers for running seconds and chronograph minutes are sapphire with printed lacquered scales on them. And then we have a little bridge that holds the dial at the base. You can see it's been mirror finished on its sides with a truly beautiful beveling that includes sharp outward points where those bevels converge in points. And I like to see that. We don't get interior angles. They're not quite that generous, but this is excellent finish. And you can see there's a solarization of the dial underneath the chronograph components, which is quite beautiful. The chronograph components, like levers, horns, and the clutch, are satinated across their tops and then mirror beveled on their sides, which is really nicely done, with all screw heads chamfered, slotted, and polished on their top. And then you can see that the column wheel itself, its crenellated towers, are also mirror polished. We have red varnish on the running seconds, chronograph seconds, and chronograph minutes hands. We have little applique indices. Actually, you can see that they are silver white, whereas the hands are faceted baton in rose gold. And then we have a lovely media blast on top of this bridge. You can also see that the sinks for the jewels have been reamed and internally polished. Taking a look at some features like, for example, this external clutch spring, you can see it's been satinated on its top, beveled on its side, and then the locating pegs flanking the screw have been mirror polished on their tops. Now on the reverse side, it's not quite as artisanal. Here we have handsome and worthwhile and attractive, but mostly mechanically executed finish. So the action is on the dial side, and frankly, I'm totally fine with that. That's where it probably does the most work for the viewing pleasure of the owner. And you can see here the bevels are perfunctory, the Côte de Genève are mechanical, the engine turning is done by automated means. We do have an attractive rotor though, with a nice tonal contrast and a handsome design. A good watch overall. It's the best sized Memoris I've seen so far, and with 50 pieces you're not likely to see another. The finishing on the dial side is as good as you'll see anywhere, quite a bit better than you'll get from the likes of Glasuta Original or Zenith or Jaeger-LeCoultre or even Audemars Piguet and frankly F.P. Journe. This is a really credible product. Reach out if you love it to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.